Welcome to episode 554 of the Brainy Business, Understanding the Psychology of Why People Buy. In today's episode, I'm excited to introduce you to Judd Kessler, author of Lucky by Design, the hidden economics you need to get more of what you want. Ready? Let's get started.
You are listening to the Brainy Business Podcast, where we dig into the psychology of why people buy and help you incorporate behavioral economics into your business, making it more brain-friendly. Now here's your host, Melina Palmer.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melina Palmer, and I want to welcome you to the Brainy Business Podcast. What if the most important markets you play in aren't the ones where you bid with money, but the ones operating behind the scenes with hidden rules, signals, and shortcuts that decide who wins and who loses in all aspects of life and work? In a moment, we're going to dig into how you can spot these hidden markets, use them to your advantage, and even redesign the ones you control. Yes, you control some of these too, because in our era of AI, bots, and overloaded timelines, it's more critical than ever to understand the real game behind what looks like just another cue. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Judd Kessler. Judd is the Howard Marks Professor of Business Economics and Public Policy at Wharton, and he is a leading researcher in behavioral economics and market design. His work focuses on pulling back the curtain on the hidden markets all around us, from concert tickets to job offers, and shows us how to get more of what we want. His book, Lucky by Design, explains these dynamics in accessible, actionable terms, and is, of course, the focus of our conversation today. While you listen, keep this question in mind. What hidden markets am I in right now? And what are their rules? Really quickly, before we get into the conversation, I want to be sure you know that there are links in the show notes for my top related past episodes and books, ways to get in touch, and more. It's all within the app you're listening to and at thebrainybusiness.com/554. Now let's jump right in. Dr. Judd Kessler, welcome to the Brainy Business Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm very excited to be chatting with you today. We've, of course, gotten to know each other a little bit here before jumping into the interview, but for everyone who doesn't yet know you, can you share a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Sure. I'm a behavioral economist at the Wharton School at University of Pennsylvania. I've been here 15 years. And I do a bunch of research, including on how to get people to behave pro-socially, which government programs are effective or ineffective, and on market design, how we allocate things in environments where we don't want to use prices, and developing better ways of doing that.
Well, and so we talk about behavioral economics, like I was saying with you on the show, that's the whole point. That's why we're here, right? So I was excited to have you with us. Haven't really specifically dug in on market design, though, too much. So can you share a little bit about what that means and the type of work? Yeah.
No, so it's a subfield of economics, kind of like behavioral economics. There's some overlap, but it's not, it can kind of operate with agents that optimize and don't display biases, but of course, humans do, and so then you have to account for that when you do market design. But it's essentially a branch of economics that thinks about allocating scarce resources in environments without price, or where price is not necessarily going to play as big a role. And so a lot of what the academic market designers do is think about centralized clearinghouses. So the kind of examples that we learn about in our classes are things like the doctors getting matched to residency programs at the end of medical school, and they submit a rank order preference list, and then the hospitals do the same, and they match. And the match that gets used for elementary school students in my hometown of New York, you rank a list of schools, and there's preferences that you have, and then the schools give you priorities, and they do a match. And academic economists have been involved in those matches and generated algorithms that have lots of nice properties. But I think of market design kind of more broadly as, thinking about environments where the traditional thing that economists think happens when you have scarcity, the price rising to clear the market, there's a lot of markets where that doesn't happen. And so you need to figure out who gets allocated stuff. And so, the idea is there are different rules that apply there, and kind of understanding those rules can be helpful.
Right. Well, and we know that there are people on the side that are creating the program when they have this scarce resource that have the best of intentions. And what it feels like, as with any of the, behavioral economics, like the thing that seems like it's going to be the right way or the easy thing to do, or what maybe feels like the only option because it's all you've ever seen, you aren't realizing that it's making it nearly impossible for some people to get something, or not thinking about, whether we call them Cobra effects here or not, but those loopholes, they are there and people will find them, whether it's now bots or anything else. So do you have some examples of I know you have all the examples, but what example would you like to share of the good intentions gone wrong and common missteps?
Yeah. So I talk in the book about this classic example of a hidden market for live event tickets. So, Taylor Swift has her tour, her Eras tour. She doesn't want to raise the price so that only rich people can buy tickets to her shows. That's not the thing that she wants. So she puts the price substantially lower, but at the prices she's charging, she could fill each stadium like a dozen times, right? So, charging $99 for a ticket, there could be, thousands of people who are going to, want a ticket that are not going to be able to get, for every section. And so that's a classic case of where there's scarcity. It's not being resolved with prices. And what has historically happened over time is that we used to do first come, first serve for live event tickets. So in the olden times, pre-internet, even credit cards, people would stand online in front of a venue box office or for musical performances outside of record stores sometimes and buy tickets to the events, basically by waiting overnight or waiting longer than everybody else. And I think there's things that are not great about that, right? It's not easy for market participants. You have to feel safe sleeping on the street in front of the venue, which might kind of preclude certain people from entering. So it might not be equitable or easy for market participants, but it might be efficient insofar as the people who get the tickets really, really want them. And then over time, technology improved and we were able to, order over the phone with a credit card and then, online. But we kept first come, first serve for tickets. And what ended up happening was that when it was calling in on a phone line, the phone lines would get flooded and it'd be hard to make normal calls when tickets for big shows were big venues and concerts were being released. But also it created an incentive for speculators to set up boiler rooms to have people, call repeatedly when the tickets were available for sale. The internet has made it even worse. So now you mentioned bots, and a lot of tickets and a lot of first come, first serve races are won by computer programs that we can't compete against because, we're not a computer. And so, they're going to beat us for those tickets. And so these are kind of a market that, again, it's how it's always been done. And it's not clear that it's kind of the right way to do it today.
Right. And I do feel that I must put out Mom, if I didn't thank you enough for the multiple times that you sat out for Backstreet Boys and NSYNC concert tickets for me.
That is dedication.
And getting tickets to bring a friend even, right? So,
No, and that's the smart thing to do. Once you're waiting online, buy as many as you can. That's what the ticket brokers do. That's what you should do too. Bring your whole crew.
Right. So, Mom, thanks for that. Appreciate that I got to see them in concert when they could still dance, now that they're all
there are cruises I think you can go on and see the Backstreet Boys today.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we all see and have encountered these hidden markets, but also saying hidden for a reason. And I really in reading through the book, and as you see, just all the layers of ways to think about it and how this is impacting people, there are definitely things you've maybe encountered, but don't realize it's that market where it's advantageous to be thinking about what your competitors want or how to approach this. Before we jump into the more complex styles, I really appreciated that you started us off with a story about your kids. And as I said, might be because we've got 3 kids at home as well, that this really resonated with me. But I think the way that you relate examples to things that it's like, oh yeah, I've dealt with that. We've done this, helps, whether it's getting, reservations for dinner or buying tickets for the Eras tour, which, didn't even get into that. But I know other people who did.
Yes. Good for them.
So can you share a little bit just with the intro and some of that information with your kids?
Yeah. So I opened the book with a story about teaching my daughter, who was 4 years old at the time, how to play rock, paper, scissors. And it's, I'm sure everybody's listening knows it, but it's a hand game that rock beats scissors, scissors beats paper, and paper beats rock. And I think of this story as kind of an allegory for the book, because what was happening for my 4-year-old was that she was watching her older brother and older sister play rock, paper, scissors against each other for allocation purposes, to see who got the television remote, who got the last can of seltzer in the fridge, what we had for, whose preferences won the day on what we ordered for dinner. And for, until she learned the rules of the game, she just kind of saw her siblings make incomprehensible hand gestures at each other. And then one would be happy and one would be sad, and something would get allocated. And so first thing I did was teach her about, the game, what the hand gestures were, which move beat which other move. But then she played for the first time against her older sister, and it was for getting into the bath, and, something she cared a lot about, but relatively low stakes. And she just played scissors every time. And that is not a good strategy. And her, sister is only 2 years older, figured it out and beat her pretty decisively by continually playing rock. And it struck me that, it's not just that you have to kind of see that a market exists, that the stuff is getting allocated with this particular rule. And you have to understand the rule, like you have to understand how the game is played. But you also need strategy to figure out how to get what you want, right? You have to learn that as well. And so then I realized that there's lots of markets like that in the world that are allocating things. And to succeed in those markets, you have to understand that it's a market. You have to see it. You have to understand the rules that are being employed to allocate stuff. And then you have to develop the right strategy to get what you want.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And even in this case, we only have 3 options, right, of rock, paper, or scissors when you're trying to win. Unless, are you planning to teach them rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock?
I do not. My dad, he used to play with match, rock, paper, scissors, match, but match was dominated because it beat paper, but lost to scissors and rock. And at some point I tried to explain to Dad, this is like, in my econ classes, I would teach you never play match. But he liked it. He liked kind of, having a fourth option to play.
Yeah. So rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock are you familiar with?
No, tell me what's Lizard and Spock?
Yep. It's from the Big Bang Theory, which, one of the greatest shows ever. So it's, lizard poisons Spock, and rock crushes lizard, Spock defeats paper, or whatever. Like, it's the whole...
So, I mean, look, I liked opening with rock, paper, scissors because I thought it was simple and easily approachable. But it's true that the market rules can get complicated quickly, right? Like rock, paper, scissors, 2 people, 3 strategies, that's it. And the optimal thing, by the way, for those, is to be random, which is very hard for a 4-year-old to do, even once she understands the strategy. But in a lot of other markets, it gets complicated quickly. And I think a lot of people feel like, oh, well, if it's complicated, there's very little I can do. But I want people to recognize that they have more agency than they think in these markets. And by kind of learning what strategies they have available, they can at least feel good about the process, even if they don't get exactly what they want.
Yeah. And being able to understand your own choice in that and what you care about the most, to understand that. But before we get to that piece, let's talk a little bit about the 3 E's that come into play when we're considering these types of markets. Yeah.
So the thing that is happening when we have a hidden market is that for some reason, we're not using price to decide who gets what. And so, economists, we love prices. We think prices are the greatest. When economists say supply equals demand, we're making an assertion that price will make that happen. But of course, there's many markets where we don't let price rise. Taylor Swift doesn't want the price to be very high. We don't sell seats in elementary schools. We don't decide who to hire based on who will take the lowest salary. We don't sell life-saving organ transplants to people who, can pay the most. Right? There's lots of cases where we leave price out of it or price doesn't rise. And so, one of the reasons that we don't think prices are good all the time is for reasons related to equity and efficiency, two of the three. So, because of wealth and income inequality, it might not be equitable if rich people got access to everything and poor people did not. And you could also see why that inequality would mess with efficiency. So you think about the diehard baseball fan that's been to every home game, sitting in the cheap seats, and then it's time for the team makes it to the World Series. It's time for the championship, and the ticket prices skyrocket. Well, is it really more efficient that somebody who is willing to pay $1,000 for a seat gets it when the diehard fan can't? That doesn't seem like it's the right allocation of resources. So we usually, when we decide not to use prices, it's because we're worried that the allocations that will come out will not satisfy the three E's: efficiency, equity, and then the last one is ease, being easy for market participants. So whenever we look at a hidden market, those are the three things that we want to think. Is the rules of this hidden market, are they achieving, or are they getting close to achieving efficiency, meaning giving the thing to the person who values it the most? Equity, meaning treating kind of people that you want to be treating equally. So giving everybody the same shot at getting something that they want. And then easy, is it an ordeal to get what you want, or can you just kind of enter the market, participate, and leave without too much of your own time and energy being wasted? So the lines that your mom stood in or slept in to get you the Backstreet Boys tickets, like that was an ordeal. That was not easy to participate. But of course, as we've gone online, it's it might not be efficient or equitable if bots are buying things up and reselling them at high prices.
Yeah, and it may feel like you on the side of like, well, I'm just like everyone else, and if I get my shot when I hit refresh, then I do, and if Steve down the street got it, then good for them. But you don't realize that there's, like, say, someone who programmed 1,000 computers to get them all, and no one had a shot.
Yeah, in the book, I use the analogy of you're racing in the 100-meter dash against a fleet of Ferraris. Like you just it's not a fair comparison. It's not. That's not going to be good for you.
Definitely. So as we think about that, so now we know, like, we've got these competing forces, and knowing for someone who's acting as a market designer, whether they have that as their job title or not, which is mostly not, right?
Mostly not, yeah.
But you have to consider those three E's as you are looking to design the opportunities. But we also have the people who are trying to get stuff, right? And so you have some really good examples of even something as simple as, say, getting a dinner reservation, or getting the parking spot at Costco, which again, I hear you. Preach.
Yeah, it's these very important markets that we play in weekly. Yeah.
So can you share a little bit about kind of what we're looking at as we're deciding what we value, what others value, how to approach kind of mindset of getting stuff as we start to look for these hidden markets? Yeah.
So those two examples, so getting the reservation at the hot restaurant and getting the parking spot at Costco, those they're different, but they have something in common, which is they're both first come, first serve races, basically. So the getting the reservation at the hot restaurant is a lot like trying to be the first to click. There are bots that buy up popular reservations now, but typically that's a smaller part of the market. And so when you are playing in that market, you will be going, say, this happened to me when I was trying to get my wife a birthday dinner at a fancy restaurant that was very hard to get reservations for. All of the reservations for the following month were going to be released on the first day of the preceding month at a particular moment in time. And I had to decide whether I should click for the reservation that I thought you would like the best, so Saturday night at 7:30, or go for something less desirable. So I call these two strategies go for gold. like a gold medal reservation would be the 7:30 on Saturday. Or you could take a kind of less aggressive strategy, which I call settle for silver. So don't try to get the absolute best thing. Pretend that your second choice or your third choice or something less desirable is actually what you want. And we do the same thing in the parking lot at Costco, right? We're driving towards the front. We would all, I mean, unless you want to get your steps in while you're on your Costco trip, we all kind of want to be really close to the entrance. We want to drive to the front and try to get that perfect spot. Maybe it's fine to walk to Costco from a distance without any purchases, but on the way back, it's much harder. So we want to be out front, and we can decide that we're going to go for it. We're going to drive all the way to the front. But of course, if the lot is pretty crowded, right, as we pass the spot a few rows back, right, that's our silver medal spot. We could take it right now and be sure to have it. If we go to the front and see there's nothing there and we circle back, like, will that spot still be available? I'm not sure. Right. And so the strategy you play of kind of trading off, what is it that I really want versus what might I be okay with? Right. It's the same dynamic. So with the reservation at the hot restaurant, if you decided that, you wanted the 7:30 reservation, you're going to be competing with a lot of people who want the same thing as you. And you might be better off settling for silver, saying, look, I know it's not my first choice, but if I go for a 5 p.m. reservation or a 4:30 p.m. reservation, like there'll be a lot less competition, and you will have a much higher chance of getting the reservation, if you play it that way. It's a little disappointing because you have to settle, right? But if it's the case that you identify in your preferences that actually, I don't really care that much about when I eat. Like, as long as I get to eat at this, restaurant, which is a dream of mine, like it's okay to eat at 4:30. If that's the case, if it's not that big a difference, then settling for silver might be, the right strategy for you.
And like you're saying, and I know in the case with getting the reservation for your wife, and you want it to be a surprise, and so you're trying to get the dream, but then you can look and say, well, is it? If you would have had a conversation and you ask and say, hey, I'm going to try to do this thing, do you just want to go no matter what? Like, then you can start to prioritize, right? And say, is it about being there no matter what? And even if it's 3 p.m., like, we make it happen, right? It's good.
Right. No, it's important to know. I mean, look, the same dynamic, the settling for silver versus going for gold thing, it comes up a lot in hidden markets. So another market that I talk about, much later in the book is a market for college admissions. So there is a decision at some point that folks have to make when they're applying to college of, are they going to apply early decision? So apply early and commit to go to a school, or, are they not going to? And if they do apply early decision, where are they going to apply? Because the whole point of early decision is you're committing in advance to attend a school. So you can only apply early that way to one place. The schools like it. They like to maintain high yield. They want to, have a lot of people who they admit come. And so they will you do in fact have a higher chance of getting in if you apply early. And so then the go for gold, settle for silver there is, look, it might be that your top choice school is this, very high reach school that might, have very low admissions rate. And, it would be great if you could go, but, whether you apply early decision or not, like, your chances of getting in are infinitesimal. A settle for silver strategy might be to say, look, my second or my third choice school, right, I might not get in, but if I apply early, maybe I will, right? Maybe that's the school that you want to use your, early decision application on, because that's one where kind of it's not your first choice, but it is, high enough on your list that if you got it, you would, end up being quite happy, and it might only be feasible because you played that strategy.
Right. As you were talking about that, I think for people to realize too, and you give a lot of good examples in the book, but all the competing incentives and forces at play, right? So like for those listening, if we think about, our nudges, incentives being a big piece of this, right? We've got who uses, who chooses, who pays, who profits. As we're looking at this, there are multiple people who would be choosing and multiple people who might profit in different ways. And when you think about that college admissions piece, it's so easy to think about my kid and the kids they're competing against and what they care about. But the school wants people to actually go there once they have applied, right? They have other incentives they're looking for. They don't want to just be giving out a bunch of offers and have people not come in and have to bring people off a wait list or go later on. Like, what do they care about? Where are they going to be weighting and valuing your interest? And same for like applying for jobs and being able to show that you're really invested in this company and getting kind of out of your own realm. First layer being to the competition of other kids going for the same spot or other people going for the same ticket or the reservation, but then also the entity, like what do they care about, right?
Yeah, no, this is exactly right. And this is, why it's later in the book is these, I call them choose me markets. And so, who's choosing, but, in the choose me markets, it's both sides, right? The reservation and, the ticket for the live event, like they have some rules that are programming who gets what, who clicks first, who, if you're standing in line, if you're the first person in line, like they don't care about, they're not choosing, but they're choosing kind of algorithmically. It's whichever, they don't care about who you are. They just care about when you clicked. But with the college markets, with labor markets, with dating markets, right? These are more complicated markets where the person on the other side is also choosing you, right? You don't get to just say, I would like to attend this school. They have to choose you. You don't get to say, I'd like to, work at this firm. They have to hire you. And so there, it becomes super important to think about the preferences and the kind of what the entity that's choosing you, that's on the other side of the market, cares about. And that is tough. I mean, it's easier for you to think about your preferences. What do I want? And maybe it's easier to think about, people competing with you. What do they want? But it turns out that, one of the valuable things to recognize is that in a lot of these markets, the entity that you're choosing, one of the things they want is to know that this will be a fruitful match, that you will kind of be happy to attend the school or, stay in the job for a long time or be a serious romantic partner for the long term, if that's what you're looking for on a dating app. And so it is very important for you to signal to that other side of the market that you are that person, that you care about making a long-term valuable match. And so applying early decision is one way to do that. It used to be on the labor market that a way to do that would be to write a long, thoughtful, detailed cover letter about how good, you would be in that particular role, which shows that you researched the role, that you thought about your place there. And long, detailed, thoughtful cover letters, you couldn't write a million of them. You had to kind of be selective about which firms you bothered to do that for. That signal is becoming less effective, I think, as large language models have made writing a letter like that lightning fast. So I have noticed that for applicants to work for me as research assistants, like all of the best emails that I've ever received in my career, my 15 years hiring RAs, they've all come in the last 6 months. Like they're thoughtful, they're detailed, they know about my research and how they want to fit in. And it's like, okay, like this is now everybody's sending me these great cover letters. I used to be able to use it as a screen. I can't do that anymore. And so, we have to think about how can we communicate to the people on the other side of the market that we are, that we would be a good match. It's worth their investing in us.
Yeah. And that's like layering. As you're talking about that, I'm also thinking about, I get pitches for podcast and like people wanting to be on the show or be featured in something. And just off the top, a lot of garbage, right? Like a lot of it is not good. And very obviously not well thought through. But then, you start to get somewhere. It's like, okay, there's some effort. Somebody thought about something or whatnot. And it's easy but like also relating it to yourself, right? So I think still for people that are looking to pitch, to be featured somewhere, do something, which I know a lot of people listening care about that sort of stuff, still go with being thoughtful. And I think you can use AI to help, but like, what's the story? Now, if you're looking to stand out, is like, so why does that matter for you? Like, why are you caring and why do they care? What do you see in the work that's like that next layer of like, you've talked about this and I think this angle could help your audience because of that. And like, I really resonated with this part in the book or whatever, right? That you're able to dial it into something specific, even if AI maybe helps you write.
No, so we're kind of we're in the middle. We're in a middle point in time. So, right, it turns out my undergrads at Wharton have gotten really good at AI quickly, but that doesn't mean that everybody has, right? So certainly if you're telling us, oh, I get pitched a lot and a lot of pitches are bad, right? It's still a useful signal then, whether AI helps you or not, to say, I care enough about this that I'm willing to kind of tailor my pitch to you and your audience and think through that. And that is something that, is going to continue to be valuable until the moment where every pitch, even from the people who don't care and wouldn't be good fits, are sending things that look like they're, like the best ones that you get today. And maybe it won't come. Maybe it'll come in 6 months or a year. But this process, will then lead us to need other ways for folks in these markets to figure out kind of who is actually going to be a good fit for this, relationship. And in this case, maybe it's just an hour, of time talking and, a shorter edited down podcast. But, for a labor market context, it's, I train them, I have them come in, I put them into my workflow. Like if they're not going to be a good fit for the longer term, that's really problematic. And so then, you really start relying on, okay, what is a good signal that this person is actually, interested? On dating apps, this is like an example of this, right? Like some people on dating apps complain, this is like mostly straight women about straight men, where you could, it's a lot of complaints you could get, but one of them is that there are some subset of men who will just swipe right on every woman. They just, you might call it like the numbers game strategy. Like, I'm just going to swipe right on everybody and kind of we'll see who's interested in me and, kind of matches by swiping right back. That is problematic. I mean, you get a lot of matches if you're a straight woman playing on this app this way. But, if people in your town or in your kind of and your part of the platform are doing this, right, it's hard to know who's actually interested in me for me and who is, just swiping right on me because I'm a woman on Tinder.
Playing a numbers game.
Playing the numbers game. And so the apps, they realized this was something that was happening and they monetized it, maybe, of course. But they built in super swipes or super likes or roses. They're called different things on different platforms. But basically then the person has to pay money. Sometimes it comes with a subscription or you get one free per week or whatever. But you have to basically put your money where your mouth is and say, I'm using one of my costly swipes on you to signal that you are somebody I actually want to interact with. It's not just that I'm swiping right on everybody, because it would be very costly to use a $5 swipe on every person. And so right, that kind of signal comes up in a market where we have lost the signal, the regular signal is not working. And so in that case, whether it's a labor market or a dating market or, podcast booking market, like we have to start to figure out like, what is that signal going to be? So, again, right now, detailed, thoughtful pitches is great. But maybe soon it'll have to be engaging on social media or doing things that kind of can't be easily, going to an in-person event to meet you live, right? Like things that can't be replicated by a large language model or even an AI agent.
Right. Yeah. I have heard interest, not that it's necessarily related to this, but where people are talking about how a lot of in-person events and things are going to have another swing back around where it feels like, is anyone a real person anymore?
I think that's going to be one of the upshots of the AI kind of revolution, is that we're going to see the value of in-person interactions again. That, if you say to me, hey, you can either do a Zoom interview or you can come in person. And, we know you live kind of far from the offices, but if you want to come in person, like going in person will signal, oh, actually, I care enough about this job to spend a day, coming in. And maybe when you do hire me, I will come into the office, as many days a week as you ask me to, right? Even though I live, a bit of a drive or a bit of a subway ride or something. And so, these in-person interactions are going to start sending those signals, I think, much in a way that will be even more valuable in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And then just knowing too, for people, tips wise on this, as you think about, I'm all about reciprocity and giving first, right? And so if there is a place that you think you might want to work, or a podcast you might want to pitch to be on, or a thing that you're interested in a couple of years from now, start being visible to them today, right? Go comment on their posts, go share their stuff, go be a person that's on the radar, that you can be giving a lot, that then by the time you're saying, oh, and actually, I would love to work here. And they go, oh, you would? We'd love to have you here because we know you, right? You're in the group before you were trying to get something from us.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And it's also, I've talked a lot about the second side, about getting, signaling to the firm that you are interested in them and would take the job if offered. But of course, there's the kind of more obvious one, the first one, which is be desirable to the firm. And one of the ways to do that is, develop skills, develop firm-specific skills or firm-specific relationships. And those engaging in the ways that you described, those are doing both simultaneously. They're showing the firm that you are an engaged, thoughtful person who, would add value. And you're showing them that, you actually would be happy there. You care enough about it that you've been kind of engaging with it for a while. And then, as you say, the reciprocity kicks in, right? If we have a relationship, and I've been doing nice things for you, maybe you'll do something nice for me. And maybe that's giving you a chance, even if you might not have hired me based just on my background. And those can be super powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Easy things, right? It doesn't have to change the whole world to be able to do some of that. So really quick, we don't have to get into detail on them because that's what the book is for. But you talked about, so we had the, first come, first serve. We had some choose me in there. Knowing there's, chapters for each, but what are the different types of markets that are, on the horizon for people?
Yes. I mean, we talked about some of them in passing, but there's, in addition to first come, first serve races, there's first come, first serve waiting lists, and lines, right? Standing in line for something. We talked a bit about that, right? Those are different ways that we resolve the scarcity in hidden markets. There's, markets that use lotteries, that use chance, kind of built into the allocation. And it turns out there are strategies you can play in those. They all kind of boil down to kind of figuring out how to enter multiple times, some market rules, and not in an illegal way, but like, me and my friend both want to see a show. We both enter for the rush ticket lottery, we get 2 bites at the apple instead of just one. And it turns out there's lots of lotteries where you can kind of do that kind of strategy. Some lotteries reward repeated entries over time. So you lose a lot of times, you get a higher chance of winning. And knowing that that's the case would encourage you to start entering earlier than you might otherwise. And then there's the class of markets that I mentioned at the very beginning that are kind of markets that have centralized clearinghouses that often have sometimes an academic economist who is involved in the designing of the market so that it can get as close as possible to achieving efficiency, equity, and ease for market participants, kind of this platonic ideal of a hidden market. And those, if they're designed well, they should be very easy to participate in, to just kind of rank your preferences. They're not always designed well. It could be that you have to do a kind of settle for silver, pretend that something you don't love is your first choice. But that will depend on the specific market rules and understanding what you should do, and then making sure you do it and don't display any behavioral biases about trying to outthink a mechanism that you can't outthink. Right? Then that's the strategy in those markets too.
Yeah. And as we said, that so many really great detailed stories throughout the book that people can get to see those in more depth. I would be remiss. It was a small piece of the book, but the tips about email and recurring meetings, I know will be key for people listening. And I really love the insight there. Can you share a little bit about how this can apply to our everyday inboxes and meeting nightmares?
Yeah. So this is the last chapter of the book. And I think, the hope is that when you're going through thinking about all of the times you participate as a market participant, trying to get some scarce resource that a lot of people are competing for, right? If you flip it around a little bit, you realize, well, actually, you are a market designer for the scarce resources you control. And one of the things that is kind of the scarcest resource that you are most directly in control of is your time and attention, kind of what you devote your energy to on a day-to-day basis. And so when I kind of started writing that chapter, thinking of all the ways that you are a market designer, can you use these principles to help you? The first ones that came to mind were like, okay, my inbox maintenance and my meeting my scheduled meetings. And, for the inbox, I realized that all of the things that I did when I was responding to email were creating the worst possible incentives for market participants, that it was bad for them. It was bad for me. It was like, if you send me more follow-ups, I'm more likely to respond because I want to get your original email and all the follow-ups out of my inbox. But of course, that creates incentives for folks to send more follow-up emails. It's not necessarily equitable because some of my students know they have to do that and some don't. Or it's not easy to kind of remember to ping me multiple times. And so, that was one where it's like, okay, I'm going to just stop doing that. I'm going to start kind of triaging my emails differently. I think a lot about kind of the timing of when I respond to things. So I use last in, first out, which is how most email inboxes are kind of set up, with the most recent one at the top. It's not particularly equitable to respond in that way. But if there's a bunch of important emails, I respond to the one that came in most recently because potentially the person is still working on the thing they emailed me about. And it's actually the most efficient thing to get them a snappy reply. If you emailed me last night, it might be important, but it might not be something I have to deal with, instantly, because it's not going to help you, in the moment. You have to turn back to it and start working on it again for my reply to be helpful. And then the meetings thing, I realized when I was kind of thinking about different market rules, there's a market rule that is called first in time, first in right. This is how historically water rights from the Colorado River were allocated to the states in the region that tapped the river. And those rules, when they were in place, gave priority to California over everybody else, because California was the first U.S. state to divert water from the river for agriculture. And when they did that, the city of Phoenix, Arizona had less than 10,000 people living in it. Now, Phoenix, Arizona, almost 2 million. But when those rules were in place, when there was a drought, California got their full water access. They got like as much as they always got. And it was Phoenix that had to cut back. And it was a race that was played 120 years ago, determined allocations today. And I was like, oh my God, that's so silly. Why would anybody do that? Those rules don't make any sense. They're not equitable. They're not efficient. And then I was like, oh my God, that's what all my recurring meetings are. I made a recurring meeting, for a project a year ago. It's on my calendar Thursday at 10 a.m. And it is always there, and it always has rights to that spot, whether the project is, needs the time or not. And when I schedule something else, I have to work around that meeting. And it's like, this is not right for Colorado River water. It's definitely not right for my time. So I've gotten rid of basically anything that isn't teaching that recurs on my calendar. I've done away with, and tried to kind of make sure each week I'm allocating my time efficiently and equitably across people and projects and myself.
Yeah, I love that. And I hope people have, wheels turning and realizing, oh my gosh, I'm going to change my approach. The point, I think, with any of it, as we already talked about, and there's a reason every episode of the Brainy Business ends with be thoughtful, right? As that's what we're here for. Take the time to consider how you want to approach your email and your meetings and the signals you are intentionally and unintentionally sending, and how it might be benefiting or not benefiting you and those who are sending those emails or on the other side of those meetings, right? Like you said, it may not be realizing like you are actually incentivizing people to send you a lot of emails if you only respond once you've gotten a lot of emails, which is very obvious when you say it. Right. But when you're just in the like email mode, you don't feel it in that same way. But if you take a moment and say, no, I'm not going to do that. Like you said, if people are asking me about something that is on the syllabus, I am not going to respond promptly to that. And they can know that that's a 3-day response. Right. And like, you missed it. You had to go find it yourself, and you won't ask me these sorts of silly questions again. Or you can just send back, you could, I guess, send the like Google it link,
I had that in the book, and my editor made me take it out. Let me Google that for you, where you just it's a GIF of somebody Googling your question. I really like that, but yeah,
I love it. I almost said you could have just rickrolled everybody, which is its own.
If you ask me something on the syllabus, you will get a rickroll.
That's it's happening.
That's
as
the
it
way.
Should be. That's the new best response for everything.
I love it.
Well, I know everyone who's listening is so excited to learn more, to get their copy of Lucky by Design, so they can be make it more likely they're going to be lucky in these sorts of things when they understand those markets and they want to follow you, all the things. We'll have links in the show notes. But what are the best ways for people to learn more, get the book, all the things?
Perfect. So my website is Judd B. Kessler. B is my middle initial, juddbkessler.com. I also, when I realized the title was going to be Lucky by Design, I got the URL getluckybydesign.com. So that is a direct link to the book page on my website. But yeah, that's those are the places to go to get lucky by design.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Judd, for joining me on the show. We know, we will continue and have many conversations down the road, I can tell, because this was just way too much fun. But thanks for joining me on the show today.
So happy to be here. This was a blast. Thank you.
Thank you again to Dr. Judd Kessler for joining me on the show today. What got your brain buzzing in today's conversation? For me, I'd have to say that it definitely comes down to how our brains are wired to feel like all the rules out there are fixed, but they're often design. And while it may seem like the person designing them must know all the best options and design accordingly, more often than not, they don't know. So we're actually living in a non-optimized world of sloppy design. This gives an opportunity to pause and ask, are we playing the game the way we should be? Or is this a design someone built? And if it was built, is it optimal for the game I ultimately want to win? Or is it about what they want to win? And if those things don't line up, what options do I have? How can I look at this in another way to get my own best outcome? And of course, I absolutely love the idea of deciding when you want to go for gold and when it's actually better to settle for silver. When you know what matters to you most, often your best outcome is what feels like silver to everyone else. So you can win and move on. And when you can reframe what might feel like a silver outcome, to use the Costco example, parking far from the door, and find a way to make it your gold. Maybe you're going to get more steps or have a moment for a calm stroll, less stress. It's actually quicker in and out because you aren't waiting for everyone else that's fighting for a spot by the door. You can actually make it your gold pretty easily. Whether it's parking spots, dinner reservations, job searches, or so many opportunities, Judd's work reminds us that when you know the hidden market and you know the odds, sometimes you can change the game itself, and all of it can be set up to cater better to what you are trying to accomplish. What stood out most for you? Was it this gold and silver concept or maybe something else? I would love to hear about it. So please come share it with me on social media. You'll find me as the Brainy Biz pretty much everywhere and as Melina Palmer on LinkedIn. There are, of course, links in the show notes to make it easy, along with links to my top related past episodes and books, including Lucky by Design and more. It's all waiting for you in the app you're listening to and at thebrainybusiness.com/554. And thank you again to Judd Kessler for joining me on the show today. It was a delight to chat with and learn from you. Join me next time for another brainy episode of the Brainy Business Podcast. It's going to be a lot of fun. You don't want to miss it. Until then, thanks again for listening and learning with me. And remember to be thoughtful.
Thank you for listening to the Brainy Business Podcast. Melina offers virtual strategy sessions, workshops, and other services to help businesses be more brain-friendly. For more free resources, visit thebrainybusiness.com.